Welcome back to Impact. It is my pleasure to introduce Amanda Holloway, Executive Director of the Center of Hope. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you back, period.
Yeah.
Because you left for a while.
I did.
To go to the dark side.
I followed the Newfie dream of moving back to the island and got home and realized, hey, Alberta wasn't that bad, so came back.
Wow,
yeah.
Honestly, I didn't know you moved all the way back there. In my mind, you were somewhere south, like Sherwood Park or something.
I moved back to, we had a home in Calgary, so just in Strathmore, so we moved back there to see how the commuting thing with my husband felt, and we thought, okay, we can, it's working, so then we made the move back to the island. So, yeah, and was home for 2.5 years. It was nice and it was good to be with family, but yeah, our heart was still here in Fort McMurray, so we came back.
Well, I gotta ask, what was the pace of life in Newfoundland compared to the pace of life in Fort McMurray?
Oh, it was vastly different. And so I went from my role at the Center of Hope to having my own business as a personal trainer, just working part-time and doing the stay-at-home mom thing. So it was completely different pace for me, and rural Newfoundland is very different compared to Fort McMurray.
You were saying that you grew up on a remote island?
Yeah, so it's not actually an island, but not accessible via vehicles. So we have to take a ferry, and there's no roads or cars where I live. And
wait, no roads, no cars?
No, just really isolated. So when I went to school, there was 20 of us from the grades of kindergarten to grade 9. And if you wanted to go to high school, you had to move. So at the age of 14, I moved away to go to high school.
So if there were no roads, no cars, and you had a school, what did you guys take? Footpaths to the school?
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
To
like
mind.
Very tiny dirt little roads. Now we've upgraded to concrete, but
wow.
Yeah, just a very different way of life. We got around on skidoos when it was winter, and quads if you were lucky to have one, and pedal bikes. So that's sort of how yeah.
What did your mom and dad do for a living, or did they just farm? Or
yeah, no, so it's a primarily fishing community, but we were one of the only non-fishing families in the community. My dad worked with Newfoundland Hydro, so our entire community ran off of a diesel generator plant. So that's what my dad did, was he worked in that plant in our little town, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom until we kind of got in our teens, and then she worked in the fisheries working on the wharfs there when the fishermen came in with their crab and all those sorts of things, so yeah.
How do you think that growing up in a largely isolated situation like that affected you and influenced you in your life?
I lived an incredibly sheltered life, but it always made me curious about sort of what else was out there, and I kind of didn't fit in to my little hometown. I always had a taste for something different. I always sort of wanted to know more and to be part of something larger and bigger, so it just made me really motivated to sort of get out there. I was excited to move away at 14 to go to high school, and couldn't wait to go to university in the big city and just experience what else life had to offer.
So when you went to high school, did that mean boarding somewhere?
Yeah, so we stayed with families for the entire week, and we got to go home on weekends.
So where was the high school?
It was in a little town called Raccoon.
Oh, still little.
Yeah.
So you went from tiny to little.
Tiny to little, but it was still like a K to grade 12 school. But we went to a class of, I don't know, like 25, and that was my entire school population in Southeast Bight, which was my hometown. But yeah, so it was a change for us, but I welcomed it. So
it must have been a shock when you eventually went on to university.
Yeah, it was. It was incredible. But my sister before me had gone to university, so she was 10 years older than me. So I kind of already knew what it would be like. I was following in her footsteps. She's a social worker as well, and I wanted to be just like her. So she sort of prepped me for what it would be like. But yeah, it was definitely a change of pace. But also I had been so independent, leaving home at the age of 14. So it wasn't as big a shock for me to move into the city, because I had already left when I was so young. I had already been away from my family and my home. So I felt it was easier for us to transition than some of our other classmates who had never left their homes, right? So
In this region, I've heard lots of stories of young people from Fort Chip, as an example, who really have had very little time away from the community. They get to that age when it's time to go to high school or beyond, and they really struggle.
Yeah.
What advice, having lived it, would you have to young people that are thinking about that big move away from the very small community?
You know, it's just taken as an opportunity to learn and to grow and just to find yourself. You know, it's and then it always makes going home that much sweeter. You know, I still always love the process of going home, and I found I appreciated my home that much more. But I got to learn so much about myself and what I'm capable of by being away from my family. So.
Your mom and dad still back there?
They're still back there, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
They have phones over there?
Oh yeah, we do. No cell service though, but we do have phones, so yeah, good old landlines.
My gosh. My guest this morning, Amanda Holloway, is the Executive Director of the Center of Hope. Now, for context, she was the Executive Director before. So
Yes.
How long were you Executive Director for the first tenure?
2010 to 2013. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
For 3 years.
Yeah, and I had been a part of the Center of Hope prior to that in 2006 as a practicum student. So I have a long-standing history with that little place. So it's grown on me, but yeah.
So when you went to university, I assume for social work,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, you came out of university, was it immediately to Alberta, or were you doing some things on the east side of the country?
I came during a summer practicum. I was getting ready to go into my social work. So I was in university getting ready to go into my social work program. Had some friends out here in Fort McMurray and heard all the wonderful things about how easy it was to get a job and great experience. So I thought I'll get a jump on that. And I came out for the summer and thought I'm going to find something social worky here to get some experience in. And I passed out my resumes to anywhere, and I remember walking by the Center of Hope, and at that time it was the 2 hands and a coffee cup in the middle, and I thought, that's got to be something social worky. I had no clue what it was. Dropped off my resume, and they were the only ones who called me back. And so I went for an interview, and I was incredibly intimidated, felt way over my head, but the ED said, you know, we'll give it a shot and try it out. And I fell absolutely head over heels in love with the agency, what it stands for, the work it does in the community, and with the patrons who call the Center of Hope home.
Close your eyes for just a second. Play along with you. Close your eyes and go back to that very first day at the Center of Hope. You've just had an incredible education, university for X number of years to get a degree, learning lots of theory. When you first came face to face with real human beings in that context, were you prepared, and was it anything like you thought you might imagine? You can open your eyes now.
No, I was not prepared. When I went to school, I thought I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to do one-to-one practice. Anytime anyone said they wanted to work in community, I would literally gag. I thought, why would you want to work in social profit? Why would you want to do that? And so and growing up in a small town, I never saw homelessness like that. That was nothing that we saw in our backyard. Yeah. So I was not prepared, but all I knew was that my heart was overwhelmed, and I just thought, this is where I could really impact and make change. This is something that I really could do, and even though I knew I was way in over my head, I thought, I gotta give it a try.
Do you remember the first person experiencing homelessness that you ran into?
You know, we're not supposed to have favorites at the Center of Hope, but we all have those ones that really stick with you. And I absolutely do recall that first one who completely rocked my world, who made me so incredibly humble, made me appreciate everything I had, and just taught me true joy and just presence in the moment. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He died on the streets here of Fort McMurray, which was incredibly hard, but I had some of the most genuine moments with this gentleman who most people would pass him by on the streets and not give him a second chance. But he was so kind, so caring, so thoughtful, and he made me laugh like no one else, so yeah.
Our guest this morning on Impact is Amanda Holloway, Executive Director of the Center of Hope, located on Franklin Avenue. We're going to take a break and come back with more of Impact right after this. And welcome back from the long weekend. It was the Labor Day long weekend, the last hurrah of summer, and I'm speaking with Amanda Holloway from the Center of Hope this morning. I found myself in an interesting moment on the weekend that I told you about. I was canoeing alone, and I lost control of the canoe essentially, and got swept into the middle of the lake, and was really panicking that. And it was just a normal kind of day on the lake, but the way the wind was blowing, it was exactly in the wrong direction. And I got to the point where I had no more control, and I actually had to flag down a boat for help. So in a moment, I was in control. The next moment, I was absolutely powerless. And I imagine in your work at the Center of Hope, you see that possibly every single day.
Yeah, all the time. People whose lives were normal, just like you or I, or I guess normal is a loose term, and what is really normal, I suppose. But, you know, things are going along, and in the blink of an eye, things can change. And that's true for any of us.
A number of months ago, there was a Seeing is Believing tour. One of the stops on that tour was at the Center of Hope. Now, Steve Yotaro, who's the campaign chair for 2017, has been on many different Seeing is Believing tours. Here in Los Angeles, in Houston. He's been involved with the United Way for the better part of a quarter century. Yeah. But that was the very first time he kind of had not a breakdown, but he started crying. He was very moved. And I believe it was a story that you told. I have no idea what this, do you recall the story
I do,
that you told?
yeah.
What was the story?
So, you know, we always at the Center of Hope find it difficult to really grab at people because, I don't know if I'm allowed to use this word, but homelessness is not really sexy. You know, the clientele we serve, people have there's a lot of stigma around there and a lot of misinformation. So any opportunity I can to share those personal stories of clients who come through our doors, you know, of course, protecting their identity, we do that. So I shared a story of this one particular individual who was a long-time patron of the Center of Hope. She walked the streets of Fort McMurray for quite some time, and sometimes actually even crawled the streets of Fort McMurray because she would be in such a terrible state. And she was one of those people, if you were on one side of the sidewalk, you could watch people go to the other side. You know, and she was just treated with such disrespect in this community. But what people don't know about her was that she was a mom and a wife, lived that quote-unquote normal life again, like most of us, and she was in a car accident. And from that car accident, she had a brain injury, which led to her life spiraling out of control. A traumatic brain injury. She sort of started consuming alcohol and unable to take care of herself. Her family broke down, you know, she lost her children and her husband, and she ended up on the streets. And in the blink of an eye, that could happen to any one of us. And so she lived a life of chronic addictions and chronic abuse out on the streets of Fort McMurray, and we were that one safe place where she could come all day and be treated with dignity and respect, and loved just for who she is at that very moment in her life. And despite our best efforts, we tried many ways to help her in the best way that we could. But unfortunately, she got very ill, and I wasn't there at this time, but staff came in to find her. She had died underneath the window of the Center of Hope. She had come there that night to the one safe place that she had in this community, and that's where she took her last breaths. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And since we've been open in 2005, we've had 83 people, 83 patrons of the Center of Hope who've died, whether it be on the streets or from illnesses or those sorts of things. So it's incredibly difficult because we get to know these people and love them and hear their stories and understand what brought them to this place. So they're not just nameless, faceless people.
I painted a gentleman from the Center of Hope at the Katie Gala last year, And he's one of those stories. He had a university degree and loved to sing. So sometimes, if you just look at the surface, you don't see what's beyond that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things that really struck home for me in the years that Barb worked there was she kept hammering away this idea, we have to change our language a little bit in terms of they are not homeless people, they are people experiencing homelessness.
Living in homelessness, yeah.
How does that resonate with you, that idea? Because it really, to this day, I have a hard time saying homeless people. I always want to go to, they are people experiencing homelessness.
Exactly, you know, and I was talking with this Steve the other day, actually. We have become very comfortable in labeling people. And so when you use the word homeless or this guy is homeless, it creates this entire image of what this person is and isn't. And there's much stigma and shame and grossness that comes along with that label. But, you know, the individuals who are living in homelessness on the streets are no different than you or I. They may have been your neighbors at some point, you just don't know it. They may have been your coworkers, or may have been, you know, lots of individuals who work for the larger sites, or it could be anybody.
Just don't know.
So they're experiencing something in their moment right now that's not who they are. It's just a part of what they're experiencing presently in their lives.
One of our 100 Faces featured people is Adam.
Yeah.
And I could say his name because we're going to be sharing his name, and he was proud to share his story. And he was bubbling over talking about the impact that the Center of Hope has every single day and how wonderful it is. There could be somebody listening, I don't think it's possible, but maybe there is, that has no idea what the heck we're talking about when we say Center of Hope.
Yeah.
What is it?
We are a whole bunch of stuff. So Center of Hope is Fort McMurray's only daytime drop-in for individuals living in homelessness or at risk of living in homelessness. And so we're open 365 days a year, and we offer an array of supports and services designed for meeting people no matter where they are sort of in their life at this moment. So we help people with their basic daily needs, so access to showers, laundry, food, safe shelter out of the elements. But we're so much more than that. We have a very active outreach team and a street outreach team. You'll probably see them in some of the afternoons walking around with their backpacks that offer more intensive support. So whether it's somebody needs help with going to treatment, somebody needs help with getting identification or gear to get back to work, if somebody is looking to the whole gamut of whatever their barrier may be, the outreach workers will work with them on that barrier. And then we also have a Housing First location over on Manning Avenue where we house Housing First workers, a rapid rehousing worker, and eviction prevention specialist. And then we also have a facility called Captain's Place, which is a permanent supportive housing model for 3 men who have a diagnosis of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder.
I want to give the listener a bit of a sense of the community of the Center of Hope. So when you walk in, there's a series of beautiful couches, and it is a community. It is a community of people that see each other every day. Describe that community for people, and are there basic rules that patrons need to sort of follow when they come into the Center of Hope?
Absolutely. So we run the Center of Hope much like a house. You know, it's their space, but within that, we all have sort of house rules of what's okay and not okay to do when you're in amongst your family or your friends, right? So a lot of people don't know, but like our patrons sign up for chores every day, you know, so they're responsible for cleaning up the place just like we are. You know, we have some blanket rules of respect for the staff, but respect for each other. You know, we are very tolerant because we appreciate that. We're a tolerant facility and practice from a harm reduction model, so our patrons can come in under the influence, which creates some behavioral issues at times. So for a lot of people coming in, it can be intimidating, and we freely recognize that. But for those of us who are in it, we know that it's a safe, wonderful place, and there may be moments where things get a little bit heated, but the vast majority of the times it's people hanging out and having companionship and meeting with their workers and moving forward in their case planning, and yeah.
One of the first patrons of the Center of Hope that I painted passed away, and I attended. I don't know. It was like a pre-memorial. It was something for the patrons that day, and it was one of the most powerful and beautiful things I've ever experienced. Especially because this individual's son, who also was living on the streets, spoke, and he was under the influence. But it was still one of the most heartfelt things I've ever seen.
You know, it's. I have to commend the staff team of the Center of Hope, because you know, when you go to work every day, you know, you don't anticipate that planning memorials will be part of your job description, because that's not written anywhere. But sadly, that has become a huge component for the staff, but something that they take joy in, because a lot of our patrons may not necessarily feel comfortable to go to maybe a larger memorial that's being held by a family, or for some of the patrons who have died, they don't have that anymore. They don't have family, and the people who they live with on the streets are it. Yeah. We're it. So we've definitely planned a lot of memorials, and we want to make sure that the patrons and the staff team have that moment to grieve together and to celebrate those relationships and connections.
Our guest this morning is Amanda Holloway, Executive Director of the Center of Hope. We need to take a break, and you are listening to Impact. It is a team effort of United Way, Fuse Social, Shaw TV, Fort McMurray, and our friends here at 91.1 The Bridge. Good morning, welcome back to the show. Just a few days prior to the start of the United Way campaign, kicks off on Thursday and goes for 10 weeks, and of course the Center of Hope is a big part of that. And I got to ask, because I think it begs the asking, how important is United Way to what you do at Center of Hope?
It's absolutely critical. You know, United Way has been a vital and continued supporter of the Center of Hope for quite some time, and their support allows us to do the work that we do every day, and allows us to have that tremendous impact on the people that we serve. And I honestly don't know what we would do without the United Way, and their belief in us, their belief in the programs that we offer, and their belief that we can help change our community. So,
well, of course, United Way is all of us, and we're going to be celebrating that fact a lot over the next 10 weeks. One of the events that you guys put on every year, you're going into a meeting to talk about it shortly, is the Katie Gala.
Yeah.
Any firm plans, or is it still in the formative stage?
It's still in the planning phase, but of course it's going to happen. We've been doing it for this will be the 8th?
It's been a while.
Year. And it's just become just like eating and sleeping. For us, it's Katie Gala campaign season here, so it's just what we do. But it's sort of our little spin off the whole gala season. We, we just feed people KD dishes. So staff will just create unique dishes with craft dinner, and we try to create more of a family environment so people can take with their kids and just experience a gala, but it's not that fancy. Gala,
so skip your carbs for a couple of months, then come to the KD Gala.
And maybe just not eat KD Gala for the next KD for the little bit, and then you'll get your fill.
In all seriousness, though, there have been a number of KD Galas that have blown me away, particularly Cameron's story. That was probably one of the final years that you were in your role the first time. But just hearing firsthand from a patron about their journey is pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's about. It's that real, raw experiences, and it's people in some of the darkest moments of their life and some of the deepest moments of hopelessness. And we have the privilege of being able to walk through them with that. And whether it's grand things of helping them moving forward to self-sufficiency and a life free of addictions, or a life where their mental health is doing well, or it's they just need a friend and a companion at the moment, well, that's what we're there for.
I don't know if you've noticed, but the last couple of days, the ravens have been coming back. And I saw my raven friend for the first time in about 6 months, which means winter is just around the corner. So I was thinking about the patrons of the Center of Hope and what they must be thinking as the weather gets colder. It was 3 degrees this morning. It's starting to get colder. How do you prepare you and your team and your clients for the upcoming winter?
You know, we have had a busy summer. You know, there's moments it's been slow, which is typical for the summer months because, you know, people are outside and you don't need that sort of to be inside as much. But even a couple of weeks ago, we had upwards of 75 people a day in our drop-in. So we're concerned as to what that's going to look like this winter because typically we don't deal with numbers like that in the summer. So. And how we prepare is we just, you know, we truly rely upon the generosity of the community. So you know what, as you're getting ready to change out your wardrobes or to get ready to restock your closets with your winter items, if there's something there that you no longer need, we gladly accept donations of seasonally appropriate clothing. You know, we try every year to really, and we also purchase, you know, mittens and scarves and those sorts of things. But any items that you have there that you feel that you're ready to pass on, we will gladly accept them.
And people just drop by?
Absolutely, yeah. Any day. We're open 365 days a year. The only time we're not there is a lunch hour, so from 11:30 to 12:30, and we close at 4.
You
So
deserve to eat.
we do. We do.
Got a great team. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for everything that you and your team do at the Center of Hope.
Yeah, it's our privilege.
It's been great having you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Amanda Holloway has been my guest. She is the Executive Director of the Center of Hope in Fort McMurray, and you've been listening to Impact. It is a team effort of United Way, Fuse Social, Shaw TV, Fort McMurray, and 91.1 The Bridge.